Okay, so today we have Jackie, who is a very interesting mind shift coach, right?
That's
And
right.
we're talking about a very important topic to me. And we're talking about trauma and what is it? Because I think that most people they think that they are traumaless and they think that just bad things happen to them, and they struggle to make the connections between some things that they've been through in their life and to label it as trauma. And so they mostly kind of ignore it. I don't know if that's too much of a harsh way to call it, but I think it would be wonderful, Jackie, if you could share with us some of your experiences with treating people using some unconscious techniques, utilizing the unconscious mind where this trauma resides, and bring it up to light so that people can understand it much better and know what to do about it. Because I think people are just like lost. And so it's so overwhelming. They don't even know where to start, really, that they just
Yeah.
choose to ignore it.
I think they don't
You
even know where
raise,
to start.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
even know
And
they need to start somewhere, right? Because they don't think they have anything. Yeah.
where usually people start is that they go into the self-help book aisle. And a lot of us have that pile beside our bed. And they always think, well, there's something about it that's intriguing. Yeah, exactly. Raise your hand if this is you.
I'm
And
taking
we know
notes
that,
because this is very good for marketing.
but we know this is what we all do. So in some, kind of dark corner, we all know that there is some improvement that we can do. And to think that we should look into what trauma is the scope that most people lose. So they think, well, I just had a regular, childhood, or I'm not really traumatized by anything. And they don't realize that because the subconscious mind wants to protect them, that regardless of what happens, I mean, your mom or your dad yell at you on the wrong day, and your unconscious mind is going to take that, and it's going to feel like you were traumatized. And you were, when you were 4, you were probably traumatized by that. And your unconscious mind is going to do something with that information. And by the time you're 25 or 35 or 45, it starts to leak out. Like all of those things that felt unfair or unjustified, or, even you don't even know, like all of the stuff when you were bullied, when you were humiliated, all that stuff that we fluff off and say, well, it's just childhood. They all have a root in your unconscious mind, and they all leak out in ways that are usually angry. So whenever we're triggered by something, we know that there's something way deep in us that is a response to some kind of traumatic response. So, I mean, I think that's one of the easiest ways to look at it. When you're feeling lost or lonely or abandoned, or what were some of the other words you two used? Or stuck. That's the one that I always get. I'll have people call me and say, I feel stuck. I don't know where to go. And it's really easy to say, okay, well, we can work together and unstuck you.
So I had a really interesting conversation with my friend yesterday. I'll give some background, but I think one of the most powerful things that came out of this conversation was I was telling him, man, you know that you're traumatized. You actually can recognize it very easily in other people. When you're looking at other
Yes.
people, it's easy to judge. You can see it in the way that they speak. You can see it in the
Yes.
way that they look you in the eye. You can see it in the way that they carry themselves and walk around the room, and their body language. And you can see when somebody is shy, and you can see when somebody is terrified or anxious. And on them, and also from the people in your life, you know that they've been through difficult things. So like maybe your family members, you know a lot about their history, what happened to who, and some difficult events. So most people are very aware of trauma in everybody else, but when it comes to themselves, they're like, nope, I'm okay, I'm good, I feel great.
I was like this.
Yeah, while they're compensating with overeating or addictions that they struggle to
That's right.
identify as addictions, and all kinds of self-sabotaging behaviors that are just no good for them, and they
Yes.
kind of choose to ignore, choose to say, it's normal, this is just me.
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
don't dig deep into understanding where their unhealthy behaviors come from. And I think, Jackie, you and me will agree very much when we suggest to people to just not do that. Don't just ignore these like major bits of information and just gloss it over like it's nothing. Because let's say you were an accountant and you were managing the books of a company and you suddenly saw that $2 billion are just like missing from somewhere. You wouldn't just say, oh, that's just like the CEO, that's his habit, he likes to. You wouldn't just do that. You would actually look at it and you maybe would call police and you would make a big deal out of it. But when it comes to our life, it's like, yeah, I've been drinking 3 times a week to death, like waking up feeling horrific for the past 20 years, ever since that day. Oh, but it has nothing to do with that
But it
event,
has nothing
right?
to, yes, right.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's how I see it. That's the conversation that I had with my friend. And another thing that came up to me that I thought was ridiculous. I saw this really unhealthy YouTuber. I don't remember the story, but I saw some video and she was talking about how it doesn't matter what happens to you as a kid because you can't even remember the memories from 3 or 4. And she was like kind of projecting.
Oh,
She
I
says,
saw this.
I only remember like a memory or two when I was 4. So therefore it doesn't matter, which is
Yeah.
absolutely not the case. So I think we'll go deeper into that. But first, your general thoughts about people glossing over these pains and these problems in their life. What do you think?
I think you nailed it on the head, Simon, because we're all so clear-eyed when it comes to everyone else, and we just see ourselves with blinders on. And we will downplay everything and say, well, I'm over that. It wasn't a big deal. Everybody has stuff in their childhood. And we just dismiss the fact that we have all this leakage, or the fact that it kind of finds a way to percolate up in ways that don't serve us. Like, you nailed all of them. When there's addictions at play, or people are procrastinating or oversleeping or waking up in the middle of the night, and when they're putting up walls in relationships, when they self-sabotage relationships, all of those things are trauma responses. And it's easy just to say, oh, well, I was hurt in that my past relationship, so I don't want that to happen again. Well, being hurt is part of life, and you want to be able to kind of be able to move through everything that has happened to you, whether you were 5 or 35 or 65, and still say, I'm on a health journey that I want to be able to figure out. I want to be my best version of myself. And the only way I can do that is if I kind of take a step back and become really curious about myself, not judgmental, but curious about, well, why did I lose my temper when my partner said that to me? Like, where the hell did that come from? And I think until we can have that same curiosity about ourselves as we do about other people, and we're quite judgy about other people, I think unless we're that curious, we're never going to be able to do the trauma healing that needs to be done. And you said something really exciting. It doesn't have to be years and years of abuse. It can be like one situation that can change the way you feel about something. If we have time, I've got a great example of this, of something that happened with one of my clients as a 5-year-old. So you let me know if we've got time for that or not, because it talks about trauma in a really nice way.
Sure.
Oh,
The-
absolutely.
Okay, so I want you to pretend that there's a 5-year-old and they love to go hiking, and they go with their dad all the time, and they love going out in the fresh air, and sometimes they're hand in hand, and sometimes dad puts this little girl on top of his shoulders, and it's just perfect. Everything about it is perfect because the little girl feels seen, heard, loved, and here's the big kicker, safe. So all of those 4 things are very important. And whenever one of them isn't working, then something is going to be amiss. You'll get like a funky feeling. While they're going hiking, mom decides to clean the entire house. And she starts with the big foyer where they're going to come back in. So she spends hours cleaning the house. And of course, she's mopping and cleaning up the foyer. So she has spent 4 hours while they're out hiking. The very first thing this little kid does is come in and step on the clean floor with muddy boots from the hike. And the mom who is a loving person, loses her temper and says, "What the hell are you thinking? Get off the floor. I just cleaned it. I spent 4 hours cleaning the whole house, and this is what you do." So, trauma in that case is you felt some way about something before, something happened. In this case, the mom yelled at you, and then now you feel something different about the same situation. So the unconscious mind could do a couple of different things. It could make walking into the house feel funny from that point on because something happened as soon as you walked in the house. It could make the relationship with your mom change ever so slightly, even though your mom apologized right after. "I'm sorry, honey, I lost my head. Of course, you know, you didn't mean to do it on purpose." None of that matters because the trauma has already taken. But in this case, what happens is the unconscious mind thinks, because it's 5 years old, oh, it must have something to do with hiking. So 2 weeks later, your dad says, "Do you want to go hiking?" And you say, "Oh, yeah, no, I don't feel like going hiking." There's something all of a sudden that has become really icky about hiking. So a year goes by, 3 years go by, you're 14, you're 17. You look back on pictures when you used to go hiking with your dad. You don't know when you started to hate it, but now you really like don't feel comfortable about hiking until you go and you talk to someone about, "I don't know how this happened." So that's not a trauma response that's going to hold you back in life, but it's going to hold you back from adventures going on with your friends, or if you want to go to another country and go hiking and do something exciting. Because when you're 45, you've now identified as a non-hiker. No, I don't do that. So it's not a big thing, but it's still holding you back in life in some way, in something that happened like that, like a nanosecond. And you've had a response based on the trauma of being yelled at by your mom. Like
It's
that's as
a
quickly as a trauma can take. And all of a sudden, years later, you've got a whole new response to a behavior. Do you want to go for a hike? No, I don't hike anymore. It's fascinating. And a lot of my clients will have that kind of uncovering. Now, of course, there's huge trauma that we know about. There's situations of abuse, there's situations of not being loved, being abandoned. All of those things take root. There's always going to be something that happens, and you can try to stuff it down as much as you can because that's what we're taught to do, especially men. I hate to say it, especially men. You're told to disassociate from your feelings and kind of just stuff it all down and move through stuff. And when you do that, you're denying the healing to live a more joyous life, to live a more authentic life where you feel like you're really connected to yourself. Does that help? I think it's a really good example to kind of show how easy something can be. Like it's like almost nonsensical, and yet it's changed an entire behavior for someone's entire life.
I think you described it very well. It was very easy to understand. And now we can see how one trauma, one little trauma, it's not even a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Can affect your whole life. So imagine you going
Yeah.
through this every week, every month, for years,
Yes.
how it's affecting and
Yes.
reshaping your reality and how you experience things, right? You said also something interesting about it's difficult to look into ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to know your opinion on why this is so difficult to look on other, like on in ourselves, but not on in others.
I think just because we don't necessarily want to uncover the ugly. And, you know, when we start digging, we know there's going to be stuff there that makes us feel uncomfortable. Human nature is we don't want to go where we're uncomfortable. We like to keep ourselves in our little bucket of our comfort zone. You hear people talk about comfort zone all the time. So to force yourself to press outside that comfort zone it's hard work. It's uncomfortable. So I think that's really it in a nutshell. Most people, it's easier to kind of gloss over. I think, Simon, you use gloss over, and it's a really good
Yes.
way to think about it. No, I'm just not going to deal with that or think about it. I'm okay. I'm fine.
Yeah, I did that, so I can relate.
I think that there's two types of people in a sense. Most people, they tend to deal with, and this might be a little bit difficult to understand, but I'll add an explanation. Most people, they tend to think about and worry about the real material world and neglect the inner world. And then there's your more creative type that they mainly want to deal with the internal world and a lot of those guys don't have much tools to do that, but that's kind of where their mind takes them. An analogy that I really like to use when I'm explaining to somebody is that, especially men, like you said, Jackie, most men, they kind of like brush things under the rug for years and years. And then 30 years later, their life becomes maybe unbearable. Maybe their relationship is, on the rocks, or even worse, like divorce, or like they're facing terrible challenges. And I tell them,
Mhm.
okay, you're going to need to shift internally now. So let's look under the rug and see what's there, what you've been brushing under the rug for all your life, for 40 years now, 50 years.
Right.
And their initial response is, no, I don't want to, because
That's right.
it's kind of like you're inviting people to your home, and you've just neglected your home for 30 years, and it's disgusting. It's like very dirty, and so you're ashamed to even look at it, to even bring people over. You're not proud of it. You don't want to look at it. So that's scary. And what I like to explain to people is that, I'm like, for me and some people like me, I love the messiness, and I love making order and cleaning it and fixing it so
Yeah.
that you can feel good and then feel proud. Like, you have to do this like at least once, and it's not doesn't feel good in the beginning, but then we solve so many problems that, with your healthy, clean internal environment, you start to thrive, and you start to connect with parts of yourself that you and resources, internal resources that you didn't even know that were there, like your courage and your authenticity and your power
Your vulnerability.
also. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know a lot of people, some people, they get to treat trauma in therapy, and I feel like that's not even very effective, because they're usually getting these pills and medicine to deal with their anxiety or deal with their depression, instead of cleaning all the muck that they've been accumulating for years. That is the solution that mainstream psychology just makes available to everybody, because it's profitable, because it's
Yeah.
easy. And I think that's a wonderful solution for the average person who cannot under any circumstance start dealing with really difficult emotional stuff. Maybe they don't have the resources or the time. And it's true that you can't always do it. So, for people who are on medicine or getting therapy, we're not bashing you or anything like that. That's a great temporary solution. But eventually if we want to be free and happy, we have to do what we can to start cleaning out the closet. It's like if I was not fit all my life, it's not going, if I'm eating unhealthy and I have the habit to kind of binge eat and watch TV every weekend, and I've never picked up a weight in my life. So it's not like the next day I'm going to be, I don't know, like a top
Arnold.
rated athlete. Arnold, okay? I'm
Yes.
not going to be
Arnold.
Arnold Schwarzenegger the next day. Arnold has been honing his skills and his habits since he was a young child, right?
Yes.
And the same thing we do in the external world, we have to do internally. So we start somewhere, and we kind of start to shift internally, and then we start to the analogies we start to eat a bit healthier, slightly, like we start to switch. Instead of binge eating junk food, we're buying a bunch of carrots, okay? And my cravings, I'm going to substitute that unhealthy with as much carrots as I want, okay? It's just an analogy. And step by step, I will be building healthy habits, and eventually, long term, I can see real shifts in my life. And I think another problem is that people who start, they want very quick results, and that ain't happening. it's not a it's not a week monthly or even yearly like transformation. This is years of trauma that we have not even begun to process, that have accumulated. They're like in the queue, and we have to now go
Yeah.
one by one and clear them out, and then we discover ourselves. So about the mainstream therapy and what most people do, what what is your experience with that, Jackie? What are your thoughts on that?
When I'm working with a client, and I work with a lot of high achievers who are usually between 35 and 65, and they've kind of checked all the boxes and they've done everything they were supposed to do. So they're fairly successful. And then all of a sudden they start looking around. It's like we said before, and we realize that there's a lot of addictions, or there's a lot of kind of dopamine hit type of behavior. So lots of scrolling, lots of playing with flirtation, sometimes lots of affairs. So there's ways to find hits, dopamine hits that don't really serve what the issue is. And I think the work that I do, and I think that you do also, Simon, is about really understanding that the the therapy that some other people have gone to, the phrase that I use is that when you come to me, you're not going to vomit everything on the table and then we're going to sift through it together. We work very differently because a lot of the work that we both do is at the unconscious level. So you're already feeling a little bit more relaxed, and you're already feeling that you are protected. One of the things that's really important for us is to have a rapport and to make sure that our person feels safe. And that's the word that you're going to hear me say over and over again. Like when that little kid didn't feel safe, boom, there's a traumatic experience, there's a trauma response. So whenever you don't feel safe, if you're left after school for 10 minutes because you don't know where your mom or dad are because they got caught in traffic, you don't feel safe. You remember those kinds of situations because they take root. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the work that I do is that you have 5 or 10 or 15, 30 years of a particular way of thinking. And what we do is create a new pathway. So where there is no pathway at all, which is what we want to see, we want to feel better, we want to have less of a trauma response. And so we start with a laying down of a foundation, and then we pave the road, and then we put more dirt, and you can use the road a little bit more because it's new neural pathways in your head that we are actually working together to form. And you're right, it doesn't happen overnight, but in my view, it happens much quicker when you're working with the unconscious mind rather than if you're just doing it with the conscious mind. Because the unconscious mind knows everything that's going on. That's where all the answers are. As you said, the resources, the all of the trauma that you don't even know you have, it's all there. And it's being held in a protective stance so that you can keep moving forward in your world in a way that you think is serving you. So the work that we do is kind of just to go down there in a really nice, comfortable way. You don't have to relive the trauma in a traumatic way. You can kind of see it as if you're just looking down and kind of talk about it. So it feels much, much safer, much easier for the client to kind of do that kind of work in trauma response than going for other therapies. And I've got a master's in counseling, so I believe in talk therapy. I'm not, like you said, I'm not taking anything away from talk therapy at all. But I do see the difference in the work in involving the unconscious mind. It's faster and it's easier. And the other fear that I have with most of my clients is, well, I feel like I'm not going to be in control. And nothing can be further from the truth because we always want to make sure that whoever we're talking to always feels in control. So it's one of the things that we always make sure is happening. I think that there's a few differences that are very unique about when you're working at the unconscious level and when you're working at the conscious level.
So, as just a regular everyday guy, okay, and let's be honest, most everyday guys, again, there's a lot of them are, not everybody, but a lot of them are struggling in life, or
Yes.
they're just trying to make more money. They're just trying to stay, above the water, right? And provide
Yeah,
maybe for their wife or kids. And I'm not necessarily talking about men, because women also go through many challenges, but I'm just using
absolutely.
this as an example. But for your average guy, that he really isn't that interested in most of these topics. It's not stimulating. And in fact, when they hear us talking about something like this, they might like feel like a ew, or like the
Yeah,
hell is that? Like, they're not really going to understand what is it that we do. I think that they imagine in their head that, I'm going to get into an office, or I'm going to go on a Zoom call, and then I'm just going to start letting out about and complaining about everything that my mother did, everything that my father did, or worse, be vulnerable and share like
yeah,
parts of myself that to somebody that I don't really know, that I don't know what they're going to do after the session or during the session. Maybe they're going to record it and share it online. Maybe they're going to laugh at me with their friends. Like, maybe they're going to make a fool out of me. And then I don't even know what's the benefit of me talking about it. It's in the past,
right.
of course, right? So why is it that talking about it, let's call it talking, because right now it doesn't matter if we're doing it consciously or unconsciously. We can
It's still
explain that
talking.
later.
Yeah.
Why is it that bringing it up is even helpful in the most like simple and easy way? Like, why do we need to do internal cleaning? What's the problem of it just staying there and being in the past and me forgetting about it?
The body doesn't lie. And so if you're not taking care of stuff, you've heard me say leakage, there's always going to be leakage. So you might think you got it tucked down. It never stays there because it's not meant to be there. You're not meant to live your life kind of stuffing your authenticity down. You're meant to kind of be the best you can be. So in the dark moments of the morning, or when you can't sleep at night, or when you're reaching for that fifth drink, and you know that this is behavior that really isn't good for you, doesn't serve you well, then that's when you know, okay, there's something going on and I really need to kind of figure it out. I think the hardest thing is to recognize that putting stuff into words is scary because it makes it more real. And as soon as you try to talk about something, we always have the limitation of language also. So, I mean, we could talk about something and think that we're talking about the same thing. And my role is to always say, what does that look like? Tell me more about that. So I'm not kind of projecting what I think it means when you say my wife and I, or my partner and I had a fight. I know what that looks like for me and my partner, but I don't know what it looks like for you and your partner. So the hardest thing I think is to recognize that language can force us into limitations and that it's going to take time. The thing that again I'm going to come back to is when you're feeling stuck either by your thoughts or stuck by the fact that you keep reaching for something that you know doesn't help you, whether it's pornography or addictions or like whatever the addiction is showing itself up to be, you know that you're trying to cover something. And the more that you can recognize, okay, this isn't the way I want to live my life. I need to kind of deal with whatever is behind this feeling that is pushing me into trying to just make it to the next day. And whenever you feel like you're just trying to make it to the next day, that's not an authentic life. That's not how we're meant to be. That's how most of us are, but it's not how we're meant to be.
Yeah. So I think a great clue that you need to deal with something is when you are doing things that you later regret. Every single time
Yeah.
you regret it, and that's a clue that you are, without knowing, trying to avoid dealing with something or trying to cover up some sort of negative feeling. It's an escape. But again, I want to really make it so simple and so clear that everybody can understand, because you said something real great. And I think, again, for the for most men and a lot of women as well, they don't understand what's the point of talking about it. But you said something very interesting. And I think if we go back to the analogy, is that we can see the issues in other people, but it's really hard to see it in ourselves. So A simple way to explain it is I go to talk to somebody who I trust, who is not going to bullshit me, who's not going to manipulate me and use these painful things against me. Like I need to trust that person to talk to them and to be open. And I'm going to trust that at the very least, they have my best interest so I can talk to them. And I want to hear what they have to say about me and about my behaviors and register their opinions and their thoughts so that maybe they can see, relay back to me what they see about myself. And then I can start to understand it. Because again, I can see trauma in other people easily. I can see a man that is, I think he's weak, or I don't respect him, or he's shifty or sneaky. But when I behave in that way, or in similar ways, I tend to ignore it or excuse it or explain it. Like when I do
Right.
exactly the same thing when I'm avoiding something, or right. So therapy is you getting feedback, looking at the mirror step by step, slowly, getting some insights, and then you're kind of like forced to think about it and understand what's really going on underneath the surface. And then I can choose. I can pick, okay, I'm going to change and I'm not going to do this behavior anymore, rather than blissfully not knowing, like blissful ignorance. But actually there's a huge price we pay
Yeah.
in our productivity. So we actually make less money. For the guys and men and women who want to make more money, we have
Right.
less energy. We are sick in our body. Like we literally have inflammation, heart
That's
problems,
right.
diabetes, cancer. You know, the
Yeah.
link between stress and cancer is obvious, but we glance over this as well. It's very convenient. And the like us eating very toxic fast food, you know, eating McDonald's, it might be delicious to some people. They might really enjoy this. It might be like the one point in the day right now, the way that they are right now, that they feel good because their life is so stressful and their job is so stressful. But we can't ignore that we're eating food made by a corporation who does not care at all about how you feel and what you think, and actually want you to be addicted. And they put stuff in the food to get you
Yes.
sick and to get you addicted and to get you to be unhealthy and to so you know, so we're not caring about ourselves, our
Why
inner
they do
world.
that? Why they do that?
They do that because their main focus is money. It's not, you can call it evil. I don't think it's evil. I think it's neutral. It's just like trying to make as much money as possible, soulless, psychotic. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that
Consumerism.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you know, we see this psychopathy everywhere in medicine, especially in the American system, in government. I hope they're making a big shift, but that takes time. In food, in all culture, the problem is everywhere. And so when we are choosing to ignore what we're doing in our day-to-day life, then we're choosing to keep on consuming and be controlled by the world, by, you know, corporations and culture, instead of becoming ourselves. And I'm talking
Yeah.
from a point of view where I was very unhealthy for most of my life. I was consuming way too much unhealthy food and not enough proteins and nutrients that I needed. And so I didn't even notice, but it was affecting how I slept. And then I would
Right.
go to sleep. I would get very low quality rest. I would wake up feeling like I was hit by a train. And then I would drink 2-3 coffees a day. And then that made my sleep even worse. And it's just a downward spiral, all because I'm failing to stop and look at the $2 billion, $2 trillion that's missing from my life. And I'm just saying, oh, never mind. I'll plug this little tiny hole where that guy owes me $25. I'm going to deal with that as if that's more important than get my life fixed and organized and clear. Oh,
So
excuse me.
Simon, when you were doing all of those behaviors, what made you make a shift? Was it something cataclysmic, or was it something that all of a sudden you woke up one day and you realized, like, this isn't how I want to live my life? Do you remember what it was? What was the impetus behind you changing?
Well, it's very gradual. So
Mhm.
me, I have been working with a lot of coaches, and I'm basically getting a lot of therapy for years because I
Right.
had traumatic PTSD from my childhood, and I just had a lot of this, even though I'm very open and sensitive about my feelings and open, like I don't care about vulnerability. I don't need to look good in other people's eyes. If they, like, I showed how I feel, but there was still, it was overwhelming and I was not aware of all of it. So I had all of
Mhm.
that. And as I started to deal with it and invest money and invest all my time and effort into this, I started to get life-changing results. One
And
of the
insights.
Yeah, and gradually I was able to afford to be able to take care of myself. And one of the latest revelations was I started working with a nutritionist,
Mhm.
and just he looked at my diet and he was like, nope, you need about 80% more protein and
Protein.
90% less of this. And this one switch I made, man, I feel so much clearer and better and more productive and happy. And you can say that from my childhood, I was never educated on how to eat or how to be. I never had a role model in my life to teach me how to eat properly. And I don't blame my parents. They were not nutritionists. They didn't know. But basically, I had to raise myself. And my mother would buy, ready-made food. And my childhood was warming it up and eating it and being miserable.
Right.
And I just perpetuated that and continued that. And yeah, it's difficult to invest time and eat healthy. We all know we have to do it, but that's just like one drop in the bucket that naturally shifts automatically when you get on this journey and start taking care of
Mhm.
yourself. So does that answer your question? Because that was a very good one.
I can tell you mine. I think mine will be more relatable to business people.
Okay.
On 28 years old, I started to have so much pain everywhere. Migraine 3 times a week, neck pain, everything was wrong. I was sick every day almost. Like I could not digest my food anymore properly. I had what we call a fatty liver. I don't know if you heard of
Mhm.
it. And I thought I still remember this day. I landed in Bali and I was actually 30 years old at this time. And I thought, okay, if I keep doing this, I'm gonna get cancer in 10 years. That's exactly when this really hit me. My body cannot continue. I took out all this energy to try to succeed in business, and I did. And that was it. Like now I have to stop and take care of it. Take care of the body. Like I took all his energy. Like anything after that, it will be damage for life. So that's when I started to do seriously all the work.
Yeah.
And now it's been 3 years and I'm very much healthier. I still have some problems, but it's getting better and better every day. It doesn't
So
take amounts, like you say, doesn't take a month or a year to fix. When you damage your body, it can take years. And me, I've been fixing it for 3 years. I still have one little problem. It's about a sciatica. I have a 3 years sciatica, in which I'm fixing, but it's almost finished now. And then after that,
I want to strengthen what you're saying from
sure.
another perspective because I've seen your transformation, and just a few years ago you were skinny, you were like walking a bit awkward, you looked weak physically, and you were, because you've never
Yeah,
lifted a
yeah.
weight in your life, and you were very good at business, and you would sit at your desk every day, or you would do it, but didn't make time to take care of yourself, and you had
It's
sciatica.
not
So
it's not that I didn't make time. It's literally I couldn't.
yeah, you
I
couldn't.
literally couldn't. Like all my
But
energy went into trying to succeed, and I didn't have the time and energy to invest in my health.
I'm trying to paint a picture of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you
yeah.
were before. So you had sciatica. So there were things that you had to avoid. Like you couldn't, we wanted to go dirt biking, for example. but you know that if you would have done something like this, you couldn't move for 2 weeks after because you would be so sore. And everything, like if you made a wrong turn, you would have pain in your body for weeks. You were just constantly afraid. It was controlling your life, this pain. And that's no way to live. That's like terrible.
Yes.
And you transformed that. You started to do yoga. You got a teacher. You started to eat much healthier. You changed your diet. You started to go to the gym, and you fixed all these parts, and you became informed about inflammation in the body and how your feelings and emotions are flaring up and stressing you out. And now when you walk, you don't look weak. You look fit, you look healthy, you look happy. So this is like communicated within your body, and people like even respect you more, which is something that a lot of men want. And like the last example I want to add is, like, if you look at all the very successful business people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, you see their photos from 20 years ago when they were 30. They look very weak. They look like Elon Musk doesn't have hair. He probably implanted it, but no.
For
But
sure.
he's like 26 years old, and he looks like kind of like a mixture of a
40,
child
yeah.
and a
Yeah.
50-year-old. That's how he
Yeah.
doesn't look good. And today, I think he looks better. And Jeff Bezos is buff. He looks healthier. So, these guys were killing themselves, and I think repressing a lot of these problems. And they chose not to look at it, and that's okay. But at some point, we have to make this decision. Am I going to allow cancer and diabetes and unhealthy a heart attack to happen or something like that? Or am I going to take responsibility over my emotions and my inner world and shift? So yeah, that was just the picture I wanted to paint, so that it's clear for men and women who are just feeling pain every day. If it's physical or emotional, it doesn't matter. That's a clue that you cannot ignore.
That's right. Yeah, Alexis, I want to pick up on the other thing that you said also, is that you didn't have the time. And I think time is one of the things that we really have to wrestle with and grapple with, particularly when we're driven and we think that, I have to put all of this energy into my work. Certainly to be recognized or to get ahead, and all of those tropes and the way that we've been kind of led to believe that you become successful. And the first thing is, how do you want to define success? Number one, we can pull that apart, and that's another whole podcast. But number two, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, and you have to figure out exactly what your time is worth. And I can almost guarantee you, well, it's been demonstrated with data, that you're much more productive when you get up and
Oh, yeah.
you do yoga or you do
I know
mindfulness,
that.
etc. So we've got all of the data in front of us, and yet we still have all of these. I got to work. I'm now doing 18 hours. And the other funny thing, and it's both sexes. There's something that people really love to be able to say about, if I put in 18 hours every day at the office, well, you're an idiot. You're an idiot if you do that, because your body will betray you. At some point, you're not going to be able to sustain it. And then you have to figure out, well, how much work do I now have to do to recoup where I was if I had started when I first noticed this unhealthiness? So the one thing that I love about our young people now, and I know that they get a lot of flack for, not working as hard as some of us did. And I would absolutely just applaud them and saying, I think they figured something out here. They figured out that much more of a balance than a lot of us ever had in our work life, how to take care of yourself and what's really important. And I think that we can learn something from watching our younger 20 to 30-year-olds and how they're, shutting the computer at 5 o'clock and actually moving forward and still being productive, but much, much more balanced. We were all completely out of whack. And, for what? There's always going to be a cost. And I keep coming back to, you can't keep lying to your body. And the body always knows it's going to betray you at some point, either with migraines or with something as huge as cancer or inflammation, foggy head, not sleeping, all of those things that we then, as you said, Simon, we take pills to kind of make our way through that. Figure out the issue, deal with how you want to present yourself and be, and let's kind of pull apart some of the stuff that's holding you back. Because when you're happier, you're just so much more damn productive. Like you were saying, something, you're going to make more money, you're going to be more successful, you're going to have people who want to be around you a lot more, because when you like yourself a lot more, oh man, you're just a magnet. You're just a magnet for good things.
Jack, I have a few things to say first. Just so you know, I know, understand already all this because I'm doing it. And by the way, I'm doing 2 workouts a day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I still have time to work and be productive on everything, right?
exactly.
So the thing is that when you are so overwhelmed by work, you don't have brain power, because you know the
No,
physical pain is was so triggering for me. It will exhaust me. That's why I could not do workout and then work after. Now I removed all this, right? Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing
mm,
I didn't do it is because I was incapable of seeing the return of investment. I didn't understand,
yes,
right? Even though we have all the data, like you said, right? And I knew it. I knew unconsciously that it will have a return on investment. But because I cannot sit and I'm a materialist at the base, I'm a materialistic
right.
person, right? And if I cannot see a return on investment, not anymore, right? Because now I understand the inner world as well. But before, so yeah, why would I do this? Why will I spend my
Yeah,
time and energy to do all this? It's not gonna bring me anything. The thing is that because I've tried to see short term, but this is something you have to
yeah,
look for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. This is not something you look for short term, right? The last thing I wanted to say is that there is no point of being rich, successful, having money if you don't have the health.
that's right.
No point.
Yeah,
Absolutely no point.
yeah,
Like like you become successful at 40, 50 years old, and then you have cancer, and what you cannot do, you work all your life but you cannot enjoy it.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And there comes, I
I,
mean, we know that when you're in your 20s, you think you're invincible, and that's all part of living that life too. But as soon as you hit 30, there is kind of, if we're lucky, that's when you kind of look back and say,
Yes,
okay, I've got to take some stock here. I really have to be a little bit more responsible. You can't keep going. You
yes.
can't, drink your butt off and then get up the next morning and go to work like you could when you were 21. You just
For me
can't.
it
Your
was
body's going to fail.
25. You say 30,
So
for me
if,
it was 25. Yeah.
yeah,
I wanted
yeah.
to share
Sorry,
a
son.
different perspective because, like, you said something that is both true, and there's a few ways that we can look at it. Like, you said that the person that's working 18 hours is an idiot. And I understand what you mean. I really do, because it's counterproductive. And basically,
Yeah,
I don't agree that we should be working until we're retired. But when we're retired, like, we can't even go out to walk because we're so exhausted and broken and hurt and then overwhelmed because I think Elon Musk mentioned, like, he posted that, we shouldn't tax people who have retired because they've paid their share. I think that's so fair. I think
Yes.
that people
mm,
who have retired, they've worked their asses off, they've broken their bodies. And okay, when do they get their time? But what I wanted to say to offer a different perspective is, yeah, it's not the smartest way to work 18 hours so that you can be sick later. But the real deep rooted reason that at least a lot of men do this is because they have so much love. And maybe it's counterproductive, but they love their families and they love their wives and their children, and they want to give them the best. It's a feeling of not feeling good enough, and then they sacrifice. So we don't think that they should sacrifice, but in older generations, it was really cool and fashionable to sacrifice yourself for other people, and that would make you a better person. It's not correct. This is a wrong way to think, I believe, but there is some goodness and nobility in this. It's just done incorrectly. So, yeah, and I'm thinking about my father who has worked himself so much, and I just know that he loves me so much and he loves his family. He did his best. He was just given the tools that he had. And yeah, it had to be, because these younger generations, they're looking at that sacrifice
yeah,
and they're saying, no,
yeah,
we don't need this. It's insane. So,
yeah.
this sacrifice actually is, we can use it to educate ourselves and next generations.
Simon, you bring up a really good point, and I think it's really worthwhile for people to hear this. And that is, none of the work that we're doing is about blame. It's not about, well, my parents did this and then therefore I'm this. We know that we're a product of our environment, but we also know that our parents were a product of their environment. And unless they are narcissistic or psychopathic, they did the best that they could with all of what they had based on what was true in their world too. So the work that we're all involved in, none of it is about, we're not going to have you give up on your parents, that because your parents probably did the very best that they could. Things change and values change and beliefs change and what we know about the body changes. All of those things change over generations. In fact, bodies change over generations. We know that we've got more arsenic in our body now than, like they did 40 years ago. They wouldn't probably survive with the amount of stuff that we've got in our body with microplastics and everything else. So I digress, but you know what I mean? Like everything changes and we have to kind of regroup. It's not about finding faults. It's about saying, do I like where I've landed? And if I don't like where I've landed, then what's the work that I need to do? So I don't want to blame your mom or your dad for anything that happened. Goodness knows we can do that to the cows come home to no avail. Nothing's going to be is going to come out of that because the work has to still be in the person that's in front of us, the person that we're having that conversation with. It's only when you can feel authenticized and compassion for your own self and your own foibles and your own, ways of moving through with new beliefs that are going to serve you better. Therein lies your power. And whenever you're feeling like powerless or victimized, like that's the other thing to pay attention to. If the language that you're using is really pessimistic, if the language that you're using is all about, well, I could have done this, but for so and so, or, if only I wasn't held back by blah, blah, blah. If you're not really accepting responsibility for yourself, your choices, your decisions, then that's a really key indicator that you're going to be going down a road that's not going to do well for you. Like that's a lot of negative energy that is not going to work well for you after a while. And it's a really good indicator that you probably want to talk to somebody and figure out why you're stuck. And you are stuck. Like if you're feeling victimized and you're talking in a victimized fashion, then you're a little bit stuck and in ways that aren't going to really keep you moving forward in a healthy way. And that's really what we're talking about. Our whole conversation today is about moving forward in a healthier way so that you can feel better about yourself, your family, your relationships with your kids, all those things.
Jackie, how often do you see your clients saying that they understand their parents better or their family better and they have a better relationship with them now that they understand their own self, their own emotions?
Oh my gosh. 100%, 100%. Because when you can forgive yourself for your own foibles and your own, little triggers, it's so much easier to be able to extend that same energy of compassion to what our parents went through. Like we're all just products of the crap that we had kind of given to us, whether it was, being a latchkey kid or having addicts as parents or, parents who had to go out and work 2 or 3 jobs if we were from an immigrant family. We've all got a story to tell. There's no one who gets through this whole thing alive without a story to tell. But it's honoring the story and recognizing what it does for us or to us, because that's what you really want to do the work on. You never want to feel like your parents are, you know, wrecking you on purpose. But the one thing I do want to say is sometimes people will come and say, I don't want to forgive my parents. And my job is not to make you forgive your parents if there was something really abusive going on. My job is not for you to get to a state of forgiveness. My job is to make sure that you understand that you have the power to release the crap that doesn't serve you. And if resentment or regret or hatred or, all those really negative feelings don't serve you in feeling better about your own life and want you to move forward in a way that feels like more joyous, then let's figure out how we can get to that. That's the key, not whether it's about forgiving what your parents did or that's not it. That's not for me to decide. It's for you to decide. And you probably will decide all of those negative feelings are actually hurting me. So I probably want to find a way to go through it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that they have to do a particular thing or must take on a particular way of thinking about something because I think it's going to be the way they want to go. The work that I do is really specific to what do you want it to be? Not what do I want it to be. It's not my family. I've got my own stuff. I've got my own story. It's really about, how do you want to move through this in a way that you think getting to the other side is going to be better for you?
I
Right.
think that something that the world today is struggling with, and I'm going to explain it, is authenticity. But what does that mean and where does that come from? And why am I even talking about this? Like, it seems really unrelated, but it exactly is, because we have certain needs. Every human on earth has certain needs, and those basic needs, really fundamental to be
Physical
happy
and
and healthy.
emotional need. Very
Physical and
important.
emotional needs. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to eat
Yeah.
nutrients, we need our protein, we need our vitamin C, but we also need love. And we also need respect. And we also need to feel valued and to feel like we are doing something that people appreciate. And all those things, we actually really need them to feel good and to advance in life and to not hold ourselves back. Now, how is this connected to a relationship with our parents or trauma or what we're talking about? Is I feel like there's a wall that we put up before we allow ourselves to really be authentic and get what we need, to get that love, to get that respect. And we clear out the muck from under the rug, and then we leave room for us to be ourselves and to really get that love and appreciation and everything that we need without holding back. And that creates the most amazing, from my perspective, that's how I feel. After I've cleared out
Yeah.
everything, I have room for real love for people and not worry and not just, I removed so much of that negativity. And of course, I can now connect more with my mother and really see her as
Yeah.
she is, or with my father, or with my sister, and with my girlfriend, or my partner, or business partners as well. Like, once we are not being controlled by the muck that's under the rug and we clear that wall and we're open and we just allow things to be, every aspect of your life becomes optimized, healthy, productive, and good. And that's
Easier.
what I meant by it. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah.
The problem with the word authentic is not something we can visualize. So I think
Yeah.
you just described it, and I just use your words kind of to explain what is being authentic in a simple way. It's basically knowing, understanding, and getting our needs met. This is what is being authentic. It's knowing ourselves enough that we know what we need and we can communicate it in a way that is healthy and get it. That's what is. Do you agree, Simon?
That's exactly it. And I just want to give an example quickly. So let's say I'm a married man and we have not been connecting lately, and I'm worrying about, maybe she's thinking about other men, or maybe she's thinking about leaving me, or there's some sort of problem. I can snap at her one day because I've been holding this inside and have a huge argument, and then she leaves. Or I can be authentic and real and tell her, honey, I feel like we're really drifting apart, and this doesn't make me feel good. And I'm worried about our future together. And we have kids. And this, I'm also worried about that. And then that gives her an opportunity to be real with you as well about what she feels and what she thinks. And she might not give you that authenticity, but that breaks down the wall. So at least from your side, the wall is broken down. And if her wall is down and your wall is down, and then you guys have the opportunity and the tools to communicate what everybody needs and get what you need and have a happy, thriving relationship and family and reconnect.
Yeah.
But if two sides have a wall up and are not dealing with their own issues, then it's impossible. And that's why the rates of divorce are so high. And again, people are very unhappy.
And I think that one of the things that people really need to understand is that when you're driven by fear, the fear of, well, what happens if I give up too much? What happens if I show her too much or show him too much? What happens if I am vulnerable and it blows up in my face? I think the thing that we don't usually do is go to the alternative. So what happens if I don't demonstrate my vulnerability? I could lose my family. You know, like instead we think I'm going to be humiliated or someone's going to laugh at me. And these are all childhood hurts. They're all really when I didn't feel safe as a kid, this is what happened. People laughed at me. I was humiliated. I was left alone. I was abandoned. And those are all the fears in our unconscious mind
Can you
that
explain how? You have such great points, but can you explain how in a simple way, like how a child was hurt this way, and then how the same child brings it back to the relationship with his wife, or, let's stick to wife. Can you give a little bit more? Maybe
One
Alex, you
second,
have?
one
Yeah,
second. I just want to clarify because that's very good what you say, Jackie. You say childhood hurts.
yeah.
For those that
yeah,
didn't understand, the childhood hurts is exactly a trauma,
yeah,
right?
yes,
That is
So
the trauma, yeah.
yes, so
that's the
it's
trauma.
very important. Maybe people will relate more with childhood hurts. Now they need to
Yeah,
understand that childhood hurts equal traumas.
yeah. It's
It
a
doesn't
very
matter
good point. Thank you.
it doesn't matter if it's a small trauma or a big trauma, it's still a trauma.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever, I mean, when you're betrayed by a person who's supposed to be taking care of you, or you don't feel safe, or you don't feel loved, or, so like the example I used at the beginning, you were yelled at for no real reason, and your body's trying to figure out what to do with that. Those are all of
So how
those
is that a
childhood
betrayal?
hurts.
Because when
So
most people
it's,
they hear betrayal, they're gonna think that, you know mommy was supposed to love me and take care of me, but instead she sold me into like slavery or something. That's a betrayal. It's really extreme. Like, I
right.
don't know why
Boy, you went
I'm
really far with
yeah,
that.
yeah, like, which, yeah,
I have one
I went
example
really far.
if you want that I just lived
Okay,
last week. But you're
Sure.
welcome to continue, Jackie, if you want.
No, go ahead, Alexis. It's important if you've
So
got a good one.
yeah, I think I have a good one. I was in the restaurant eating a burger, and the chef is my friend, and he has a kid. And the kid was in his mother arm,
all
and
right,
the
yeah.
waitress she came and she wanted to take the kid in his hands, in her hands, sorry, right? But instead of taking the kid in her hand, she took the kid and she put it in my hands. And the kid, so I hold the kid and I see the kid is really not comfortable. And I start laughing because I know I don't want to traumatize the kid. I am aware of this. And I start laughing. I say, oh, the betrayal. Like I said out loud, but the kid doesn't even understand what I'm saying. It's like a Vietnamese child, right? But me laughing and making everybody laugh, then the kid started to laugh and was so happy. So
Yeah.
something that could have been happened, a trauma, a betrayal, literally a betrayal of this woman putting, instead of coming, I'm seeing the kid thinking I'm gonna go to the woman arms, but instead she put me in this stranger arms. That could have been a trauma. But because I was
Yeah.
very conscious of that, I was able to turn it into a positive outcome, and now the kid is not gonna be traumatized. So,
That's good. Yeah.
and I realized
Kid
what I
doesn't
did.
understand.
I did it unconsciously and I
Yeah,
realized it after that and I was so happy. Like I understood, oh wow, I have the power to change a child's perspective into for
Yeah.
something not traumatic that could have been traumatic. And it would have been traumatic. Like for sure, I saw the face of the kid when he was in mine. He was looking at me like with big eyes, like with this stranger. And I was just trying to play with it. And I laughed and I said, oh my God, the betrayal, because I saw it in his eyes, like she betrayed me literally.
he was
So
scared of you.
Yeah.
yeah, unconsciously he was like not even 2 years old, like 1 year old. Unconsciously he already knew that it was a betrayal. Unconsciously,
In
not
his
consciously,
mind, it's
right?
like, why did she give me to him? I don't trust him. What's going on here? What's
I
happening? Why, who
I
is this? His
I
his nose
trusted you
is
to go in
weird.
your arms, not in this
Yeah,
stranger arm.
yeah. Like, all these thoughts and feelings are going through the child's mind. And there's just like a deep, like, level of emotion. The emotion is heightened.
Yeah.
His nervous system is triggered. He's like, what is going on here? I don't understand. This is not normal. The kid is
Yeah.
freaking out. And all the adults are looking at this and they're like, they're laughing. They don't understand. And it's okay. You don't have to make a big deal out of every little trigger that a child has. But the kid will register this as a betrayal because he expected his mother to pass him on to somebody safe. And instead, she passed him on to you. And the child's mind doesn't understand why, and he doesn't have the tools yet to make the distinction that this isn't a betrayal. His mother is just like, she didn't know that he would be so afraid.
It's not the
Yeah.
mother. It's not the mother's fault. In this case, it was a waitress.
Okay.
But the waitress
I mean, a
is a
betrayal.
child. Yeah, sorry. The waitress was a child. She's like 20, 22
Yeah.
years old. She doesn't understand anything.
A betrayal can be as easy as, I mean, it's happened to a lot of us, is you fall down and you're hurt. Like you really do hurt yourself. And in some of our childhood, it was, oh, get up, you're fine. And because you're told you're fine, you think, wait a minute, am I supposed to disassociate from the pain that I just had? And now what we're hoping parents do is, are you okay, honey? I'm right here with you. Let me give you a hug. And it's an acknowledgement of, yeah, you hurt yourself. You can still kind of move through it fast, but to deny that something happened or deny that a harsh thing happened, some parents will laugh at their kids when they're humiliated because they think it's funny, or they'll scare their kid and then think it's funny and sometimes record it for God's sake and then throw it onto YouTube. That's traumatic. Like you're denying an absolute response, and it's a betrayal of the love and the safety that's supposed to be there in that relationship. Parent to kid is supposed to be very safe. And if it's not safe, either emotionally or physically, that's a huge betrayal. And so again, like we're not talking about blaming parents, because oftentimes our parents did exactly what happened to them. I mean, I'm guilty of that myself in terms of the parent I wanted to be. And then I caught myself thinking, oh my gosh, that's my mother's voice coming out. Where did that come from? I swore I would never say something like that. And, you know, we just all
Everyone.
do the very best we can. But when you're the adult, like when you are in your 30s, your 40s, yeah, up to your 60s, and you think, there's something still amiss. Like whenever you think that something doesn't fit right, something feels like, when there's a lie in your body, you know it. When you're trying to convince yourself of something, you know it. There's just a feeling of unease. Or like I said before, like in the dark hours of the morning, if you can't be quiet with yourself and just allow your thoughts to just kind of decompress, if you've got that level of discomfort with being silent with yourself, I would ask you to kind of be introspective, because there's something going on then. When you have to have the busyness all around you, or the drinking or the porn or whatever it is to help you stay stimulated, then I would urge you to find a way to find some quiet time or to talk with someone, because there's something off. There's something a little bit off. You should be able to feel okay and safe in your body. And when you don't feel safe in your body, that's a really big trigger. And it's one of the reasons why I developed the course called the Mind, Body, and Spirit Alignment. Like that, when things are out of alignment, we feel it. There's a leakage somewhere. Something has to give.
This is great.
I would say
write
trust
it
your
up.
gut. Go
Write it
ahead,
up.
Alex. Yeah.
No, just
Yeah.
write it up. Yeah.
So yeah, it only took us an hour and 20 minutes to explain what is trauma, because
My
this is
gosh.
both simple and so complicated in the same
Yeah.
time. And this was super interesting. Like I would summarize this with, like you said, Jackie, feel that something is wrong. This is your gut instincts and your heart and mind telling you, look, warning, look, there's
Yeah.
something wrong. I might not know exactly what. I might not know how to solve it, but I can't ignore this forever. And if I don't get a solution, then maybe in a few years I'm gonna up the level, and you're gonna get a terrible disease, and you're gonna start to
Yeah.
feel pain if you keep on ignoring this. And if you continue to ignore this, then better not go there. That's how it is.
Some
That's how I see it.
some people are not able to feel, to understand their emotion. So when what you mean by feel is also feel in your physical body. If you are not capable of understanding emotionally what you are going through, understand the pain in your body, it's emotional. So you have to
Do
look
not
into
ignore
it.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Most
And
important.
when you start to disassociate, regardless of how you're disassociating, then you know, again, that's a warning signal. That you're like you just said it so perfectly. Your body is trying to tell you to pay attention. Absolutely.
Jackie, quickly, can you explain what is dissociation? Because I don't know what that means. Dissociate.
when you disassociate, like when your body's in pain, but you're going to deny it, that's a disassociation. But also when you disassociate with your thoughts, like you just kind of don't accept where you're going, you kind of shut it
You
down. You've
press.
got some habits. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying.
It's when things aren't connected, when you're disassociating. Yeah.
Mind and body, like everybody knows, the mind and body is connected, but that's literally the physical body and the emotional mind.
Yeah.
This is exactly what it means.
Yeah.
It's all connected, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you, Jackie. I think
I
you
can't
are
believe it's been 90 minutes, you guys. My gosh.
I think you're doing a very great job at explaining things. It was
Thank you.
very easy to understand. And this is not an easy topic. So that was great really amazing on
I've
my
had a
side.
Thank you
great
so
Thank you.
time.
much,
Thank you very
Jackie.
much for having me as a guest.
Yeah, it was
Super
amazing.
interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.